I'm Sadie Monroe, 32 years old, living in Boston. And for over 20 years, I believed I was the glitch in an otherwise perfect family. Or at least in the polished version they displayed to keep outsiders from noticing the cold cracks beneath. I was the youngest, after my brother Carson. The high school basketball star, top student at a California university. The one who made our parents so proud they printed his photo on Christmas cards. And me? I was once cropped out of the family photo at age 14 because my shirt clashed with everyone else's. At first, that made me angry. Then it numbed me. Eventually, it became a habit of silence. Growing up in my parents' home on the outskirts of Providence felt like living in a play with only a few lead roles, and I wasn't one of them. All eyes were on Carson. Every holiday, he received the shiniest gift under the tree, while I typically got some household item hastily wrapped in newspaper. One year, I received an old kettle. My mother simply said, "So you can make tea when you study late." They called it fairness. I called it a clear reminder that I never mattered enough to be loved unconditionally. I still remember that winter when I was 12. I had started showing signs of mild depression. The school counselor called my mom, suggesting I see a specialist, but her reply was cold, flat. She's not sad. She just needs to stop being selfish and look at her brother. Even strangers could sense what I tried so hard to deny. One time, the school psychologist, Mr. Henderson, looked my parents straight in the eye and said, "Sadie doesn't need to be fixed, she needs to be seen." My father frowned like he'd just been insulted. My mother scoffed. I love both my kids equally, but I knew she was lying. They loved the image of a child they could brag about. Me? With my frizzy hair and straight A's, but no social accomplishments, never fit that mold. Carson knew how to take full advantage of it. When I won a creative writing scholarship in high school, he smirked and said, "Writing? Great. Maybe you'll write my biography someday." I'd gotten used to those jokes, but what hurt wasn't Carson. It was that my parents laughed with him. Still, I never pushed back. I stayed quiet. I followed the rules. I didn't cause trouble. I told myself that if I tried long enough, hard enough, one day they'd see me as a real part of the family. But year after year, all I got were family dinners, where I sat next to the buffet table so no one had to ask me questions. Christmases where I was the only one without a personalized card. Eventually, I learned how to survive without recognition. I didn't cry anymore. I taught myself that invisibility was a form of freedom. Until I learned how to turn silence into power. It all started with a crooked flyer taped to the back wall of hallway A, somewhere no one really looked. I only noticed it because it was raining that day, and I was dodging the cold wind from the rear door. The flyer read, "Coding Club, Tuesdays, room 106, after school." At the bottom, someone had scribbled, "All skill levels welcome." I didn't think much of it. That day, Carson had just been honored again at the school assembly, and I'd forgotten my lunch. When you always feel on the outside, even small doors like that feel like the only ones that might open. That week, I walked into room 16, a dusty room with 2 rows of faded desktops, tangled cords, wobbly plastic chairs, and the faint smell of burnt plastic. But there was Mr. Clarkson, our math teacher and the club advisor. He didn't say much, just handed me a beat-up laptop and asked, "Ever written a line of code?" I shook my head. He smiled. "Good. That means we won't have to unlearn bad habits." And I stayed, week after week. I started with simple lines of code, printing text to a screen, building a number-guessing game. But something in the rhythm of clicking keys, in the logic of syntax, made me feel, for the first time, not wrong. Everything had a reason. If you messed up, it told you. No one mocked you for learning. The world of code was brutally honest, but also fair. My parents didn't know. They were busy following Carson's game schedule. I hid in the library, debugging my syntax under the flicker of an old desk lamp. My senior year, I applied for a full-ride scholarship to Rochester Institute of Technology. No one at home asked where I'd applied. I quietly wrote my essays, completed the forms, and the day the results came in, I quietly read the email under the overhang outside school as laughter from classmates echoed behind me. Congratulations, you've been awarded a full scholarship in computer science, covering tuition, housing, and a living stipend. I didn't cry. I just sat there, still, and knew this was my way out. I moved to New York one crisp fall morning with 2 suitcases, $300 in summer job savings, and a heart full of fear and hope. There I became a cybersecurity major, one of the toughest programs, mostly male, and brutally demanding. I didn't have a close roommate. No one asked me out on Friday nights. But I had a goal. By day I studied, by night I waited tables at a Japanese noodle shop in Midtown. I learned how to take orders in broken Japanese, how to dodge hot oil from the fryer, and how to ignore the whispers about that plain girl who probably won't survive the city. I wasn't plain. I was transforming. In my final year, I wrote my thesis on simulated cyber attacks against a mock banking network. My advisor, Dr. Morris, submitted it to an international conference. A month later, I got an interview request from Onyx Shield, a cybersecurity firm expanding into government contracts. The interview lasted 3 hours, where I presented my own algorithm to detect and neutralize backdoor vulnerabilities. 3 weeks later, I received the job offer, right before graduation. Starting salary? $130,000 a year. I remember it clearly. I was rinsing a glass when I saw the message from Onyx Shield's HR department. The only feeling I had wasn't excitement. It was calm. As if all my efforts had finally gained real weight. My parents still had no idea. I didn't tell them. When the school held the graduation ceremony, Carson didn't show up. Neither did they. I hired a photographer myself. One photo, me standing on the steps of the computer science building, wearing a black gown and the smallest smile. I didn't need them to witness it. I just needed to know I had made it. I was working late in my tiny apartment in Jamaica Plain, Boston, when my phone buzzed quietly. The screen lit up with a name I didn't expect to still be in my contacts. Harper Klein. My maternal cousin, the one I used to be close to as a child. The last person in the family who ever called me by my real name. Not that weird girl at the end of the table. I hesitated. My hand hovered over the keyboard, the cursor blinking, waiting for the next line of code. The call rang 3 times and went silent. Then came a message. Sadie, Aunt Eleanor wants you home for Christmas. Everyone's getting together this year. Aunt Eleanor. My mother. The woman who once looked at me over a cup of cold tea and said, "You should be grateful you were raised. Not everyone gets that." I leaned back in my chair, phone in hand. It had been 8 years since I last heard her voice. That, too, was a Christmas. Also in the same white house with the wooden porch in Cranston, Rhode Island, where the tree was decorated with Carson's kindergarten ornaments and my photo had quietly disappeared from the shelf. I'd left the next morning with nothing but a handbag and the resolve never to return. And now they wanted me back. I didn't reply, but all night one question kept looping in my head. Why now? 3 days later, Harper called again. This time, I picked up. "Sadie?" she said softly, hesitant. "Are you doing okay?" "I'm fine," I replied, direct. Did Aunt Eleanor suddenly remember she has a daughter? Harper sighed. "I don't know what's really going on. It's just... Carson's bringing his wife home this year. They just had their first baby. The family's planning a big gathering, and your mom wants you there too." I laughed, not because I was touched, but because I realized I'd been right all along. It wasn't about regret. It wasn't about love. Carson had taken on a new role, father, and I, once again, was being slotted in for the perfect family photo. "Do you know why I haven't been back in 8 years?" I asked. "I do," Harper said quietly. "And I think maybe it's time you came back. Not for them, but for you." I said nothing. That night, I opened a box of old keepsakes. Inside was a Christmas card Harper sent me when I was 17. On it, she had written, "Sadie, you're not invisible, you're just in the wrong place." Maybe she was right. Maybe I should go back, not to be accepted, but to draw the final boundary, not as the girl who always sat quietly at the edge of the table, but as a woman who now knew her worth. On December 22nd, I drove out of Boston, along fog-lined roads, heading toward Cranston. The SUV I rented was just big enough to hold all the gifts I'd prepared. Not flashy, but thoughtful. I picked each item the way I was never picked myself. The old house appeared through a thin sheet of snow, like a ghost rising from memory. The white paint was faded, the porch light still flickered dimly like something refusing to die. I stepped onto the porch and rang the bell. Inside, I heard chatter and the shrieking of children. No one knew I had arrived. The door opened. Carson stood there, still athletic, now dressed in an expensive sweater, with that familiar, smug smile. "Wow, it's really you?" He glanced down at my luggage. "Figured you'd be too busy coding in some cave." I smiled politely. "Hi, Carson. Congrats on becoming a dad." I walked past him into the house, which still smelled of furniture polish and gingerbread. My mother came out of the kitchen, clearly startled to see me. "Sadie, oh my God, you're really here." Her voice went up an octave. "I'm just staying a few days," I said flatly. She forced a smile. "You look different." I didn't need her to say I looked better. I hadn't come back for compliments. I came back to close a chapter. The living room looked the same as ever. Beige walls, fireplace, covered in Carson's school pictures. None of me. Just the same sofa I'd slept on the night before I left at age 24. New cushions. Same worn-out memory. "Carson's using your old room as his office now," my mom said, glancing at my suitcase. "You can sleep on the couch for a few nights, okay?" I nodded. Not surprised. Not hurt. Just another quiet confirmation that this house had never made space for me. In the kitchen, Aunt Marcia was pouring wine. As soon as she saw me, she smirked. "Sadie? Wow, thought you moved in with robots or something." I replied calmly. "Still human, Auntie. Just working with smart systems." She raised an eyebrow. "Like that cartoon cat robot or whatever?" Laughter echoed from the dining room. They thought it was harmless teasing, but every line like that was something I'd heard my whole life. Wrapped as jokes, but really, reminders that I didn't belong. Carson emerged from his office in a gray suit, still on the phone. He nodded to someone on the other end, then said loudly, "Babe, tell them I'm out unless they raise it to 300,000. They need us more than we need them." Then he turned to me, grinning like he was doing me a favor. "Sadie, I'm pitching to a fund for my new investment app. It's going to change the way people think about personal finance." "Sounds cool," I said, still holding the gift box. "Is the app live yet?" He paused half a second. "Dev team's still working on it. You know how coders always miss deadlines." I pressed my lips together. Yeah, true. Coders can be a real hassle. I didn't say anything more. I didn't need to. Anyone who knows the field would recognize the hollowness behind those words. Carson was recycling an outdated model with no solid team and no grasp of basic security concepts. But in this house, everything he said was treated like gospel. At dinner, they seated me at the far end of the table, right next to the bread tray, my back to the fireplace. My mom poured me the smallest glass of wine, then turned to raise her glass to Carson. "To my wonderful son, we all believe in your dream." She didn't say a word to me, not a single comment, not one question. I just sat there, silent as usual. Not because I was weak, but because I didn't need their acknowledgement to know I existed. When dessert was brought out, Uncle Ron, my mom's older brother, turned to me, holding his butter knife. "So, Sadie, what are you up to these days? Still fixing computers?" I smiled. "I lead an engineering team at a cybersecurity firm. We just wrapped a major integration project with a regional banking network." "Ah, I see," he nodded. "Good. At least you've got something steady." Arson chimed in, louder than necessary. "Hey everyone, tomorrow I have a big presentation with an investment fund in Manhattan. If all goes well, they'll be putting in $200,000. This could be a huge opportunity for the whole family." My mom's face lit up. "You're amazing, sweetheart. Now that's a future. Business is in our blood." I set my fork down and dabbed the corner of my mouth with a napkin. I had just completed a multi-million-dollar project. No one asked how I was doing, and I no longer expected them to. Because suddenly, I understood. I didn't need them to feel whole. On Christmas morning, I woke up earlier than everyone else. Outside the window, a thin layer of snow blanketed the ground. Gentle sunlight filtered through the sparkling ornaments on the tree in the middle of the living room. The house smelled of cinnamon cookies and coffee, the only thing that brought me any real comfort. I carefully arranged the gifts I'd brought the night before. Each one was chosen with intention: a bottle of Italian perfume for my mom, a set of Japanese knives for Aunt Marcia, who loves to cook, concert tickets in Providence for my dad, and a high-end wooden toy set for Carson's daughter. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just wanted to show them I pay attention. I'm quiet, but not careless. Carson and his wife Eliza came down the stairs, their slippers rustling in the morning stillness. Eliza held baby June, just 9 months old, golden-haired and wide-eyed, a miniature version of her famously adored father. "Oh, look at this," Eliza exclaimed. "Who left this pile of gifts?" I smiled faintly. "Feel free to open them." My mom appeared right after, wearing a silk robe and curlers still in her hair. She glanced at the gifts, then turned to me with an exaggerated look of surprise. "You prepared all of this, Sadie?" I nodded. She didn't say thank you, but I hadn't expected it anyway. Everyone opened their presents one by one. Gasps, applause, and "oh my gosh, this must have been expensive" filled the room like background music. My mom held the perfume bottle high, her face glowing brighter than the day I won a scholarship at 18. But once all the boxes had been unwrapped, a small silence spread like ink on paper. I sat there, hands resting on my lap, waiting without hope. There was nothing for me. Not a box, not a card, not even a rushed apology like, "Your gift is still in the laundry room." My mom clapped her hands. "Oh no, I totally forgot. Maybe your gift's in the laundry room, sweetheart." Arson burst out laughing, loud enough to fill the whole room. "Just like when we were kids. Remember Christmas when you were 10, Sadie? Everyone opened their gifts and you cried because you thought Santa forgot you?" I didn't answer, didn't look at anyone. I just quietly picked up my coffee cup and took a sip. The bitterness didn't upset me. If anything, it made everything in my mind sharpen into focus. It wasn't that they forgot me. It was that I was never counted in to begin with. I set my cup down, reached into my bag, and pulled out a polished steel keychain. Sunlight from the window caught the engraving. 5th Street, Unit 3C. My mom frowned. "What's that?" I held it up. "The key to my new apartment. I closed on it last week." The room fell silent, like someone had just turned the volume knob of life all the way down. My dad was the first to break the quiet. "You bought a place? On your own?" "Yes," I said evenly. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, near the park, overlooks the Charles River. My mom placed a hand on the arm of the chair. "With what money? I mean, where did you get—" "Bonus from the cybersecurity project I just completed for 3 Northeast banks. My cut after taxes was $145,000. Eliza stopped breathing. Carson's brow tensed. Marcia sat frozen, hands clenched around her wine glass. My mom forced a laugh. "You should have told the family sooner. We're so proud of you, really." I looked at her, my expression no longer angry or sad. You don't need to be proud, just understand. I'm not where you left me, Carson snorted. Well, that's great. Maybe you'd like to invest a little in my startup? Entry level is just $200,000. Should be easy for someone who just bought a place, right? I looked at my brother, then glanced at my mom. Their smiles had returned, as if I'd only now become someone worth acknowledging. Because I had money. The air in the living room felt like it had been replaced. All the laughter, the teasing, the noisy chatter from earlier suddenly vanished. In its place was a suffocating silence. Not the kind born from awkwardness, but from calculation. My mother spoke first, and this time, her voice softened so much it almost sounded unfamiliar. Sweetheart, I truly didn't know you'd done so well. A 2-bedroom apartment near the Charles River? It must be beautiful. I'd really love to visit. I slipped the keychain back into my purse and zipped it shut. I haven't moved in yet, but once I'm settled, I plan to have a few friends over for dinner. Friends are lovely, Aunt Marcia chimed in, her voice pitched high. But family is still what matters most. You know that, Sadie. Carson crossed his arms and stared at me. Eliza, sitting beside him, nudged his elbow and whispered something. He nodded, then turned to me with a breezy tone. I know we had our differences before, but that's the past. Now that you've made it and have some means, I'm looking for someone I trust to invest in phase 1 of the project. If you step in, other funds will be much more confident. I tilted my head and studied Carson's face. He was using his usual move, the same smile that once convinced my mother to sell a necklace to help fund his summer internship in San Diego. How much do you need? I asked, though I already knew the number. 200,000, he said, without hesitation. That's just the minimum, of course. You can go deeper if you want. Think long term. I nodded slowly. And is the app running yet? He gave a half laugh. The dev team's working on it. Backend data's still short, but the concept is rock solid. We're thinking of calling it FinPilot. FinPilot, I repeated. So you're building a financial platform without a backend? Eliza jumped in, trying to keep the mood light. Sadie, this is a beautiful time for our family. A fresh start. I think if you helped Carson a little... I cut her off. No. My mother froze. Sadie, what did you say? I turned fully to face her and looked straight into her eyes. I said no. I'm not giving Carson any money. I'm not investing, I'm not participating. I'm not a life raft for a half-baked idea. My father scoffed. That's how you treat your family? After everything we've done for you? I let out a small laugh. Quiet, but enough to make the room even colder. What exactly have you done for me? My mother raised an eyebrow, her voice sharpening. We raised you, educated you, fed you. Being a parent isn't easy, Sadie. I stood up from my chair. My voice wasn't loud, but every word landed with perfect clarity. Raising a child is a responsibility, not a lifelong debt to collect on. Don't use it like leverage. Carson shot up, his face flushing red. Spare us the lecture. You're just someone who lives off machines. I'm the one who actually understands business. I looked at him, not with anger, not with contempt, just the quiet breaking of a faint hope I had when I came back here. If you really understood business, I said, you wouldn't be holding your hand out to the same useless bookworm you used to mock. Eliza lowered her gaze. My mother turned away. My father just stared at the floor, saying nothing. I bent down and picked up my bag. I'll be leaving this afternoon. My schedule's still packed. My mom rushed forward and grabbed my wrist. Sadie, wait! I'm sorry if we upset you, but you can't just walk away over something so small. I looked at her hand. This hand that once pushed me out of the house the morning after graduation, saying, Carson needs the room to prepare for his startup. I gently pulled my hand free. Something small? I've been silent for over 20 years. Now, I'm just learning how to speak. I left the Birchwood Street house at 3:12 p.m. just as the sun dipped past the rooftops, dusted with snow. Carson didn't say goodbye. Eliza was busy calming baby June. My mother stood at the door, clutching the armrest as if the whole world might collapse if she didn't hold on to something. She didn't say a word. I drove back to Boston in complete silence, save for the soft hum of the heater and the rhythmic swipe of the wipers clearing snow off the windshield. Every time my phone buzzed on the dashboard, I saw familiar names. Mom, Dad, Carson. And hit decline without hesitation. At a gas station near Worcester, I opened my contacts list. One by one, every name from that Christmas table was moved to blocked. It didn't feel bitter. It felt like unhooking the final links of a chain I'd worn too long. When I got home, it was already dark. I hung up my coat, set down my bag, and walked straight to the balcony. The city lights stretched out beneath me, warm and distant in the way I now preferred, a safe distance between me and the people who once made me feel like I needed permission to exist. My phone lit up. One message had come through. I heard what happened. Your mom's been calling everyone in the family saying you betrayed them. I texted back. Let them talk. I'm just finally living honestly. Harper replied with a rolling laugh emoji. Then came a short message. I'm proud of you. I stared at those words for a long time. Of all the voices that shaped my childhood, Harper's was the only one that never asked me to shrink myself to fit someone else's expectations. The next week, I returned to work at Onyx Vault. A new project was in motion, integrating with 3 fintech firms, and I'd just been appointed lead engineer. The biggest role I'd ever held there. I threw myself into it like it was the only thing that remained. Because, in some ways, it was. I told the whole story to my closest friends over drinks that Friday at our usual spot in Jamaica Plain. Lisa, a friend since college, slammed her glass on the table after I finished. Good, finally. You've kept quiet for way too long. They don't need another shot at hurting you. Alyssa nodded. I've never understood why you stayed in touch with them. If love comes with conditions, it's not love. I didn't reply right away. I just looked around. These faces. People with no blood ties, not listed on the Monroe family tree, were the only ones who never made me feel small. I raised my glass. To freedom, Lisa smiled. To the family we choose. 3 days later, Harper called me. Sadie, you don't need to know this, but your mom's been telling relatives you're laundering money or investing illegally. She said there's no way you bought that apartment without someone backing you. I wasn't angry, just tired. Let her talk, I said. If they need a story to justify their helplessness in the face of my existence, let them write one. Harper sighed. Are you really okay cutting everyone off like this? I sank into my couch, warm tea in hand, wind whispering against the window. I closed my eyes before answering. I cut them out a long time ago, Harper. I just never had the courage to name it. I met Aiden on a late March afternoon at the cafe beneath the Onyx Vault building. He was in front of me in line, ordering a black iced coffee. No sugar, 1 extra shot. Exactly what I got every morning. When it was my turn, he turned around and smiled. Fair warning, that stuff will keep you awake until tomorrow night. I laughed. That's what I'm hoping for. We started talking. No sparks, no flirtation at first. Just 2 people who loved tech, worked in cybersecurity, and had something rare in common. Both had uprooted their family ties by choice. Aiden left home at 26 after his mom married her 3rd husband, a man he had to call stepdad, though he never once acted like one. He understood what it felt like to be disregarded in your own home, to always have to prove you deserved to exist. I didn't have to explain much. Aiden just got it. And that's what made me feel safe. 3 months later, we moved in together. a small, sunny apartment near the Charles River, not far from Onyx Vault. We adopted a white cat named Maple, and every morning we took turns making coffee before work. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And for once, I didn't need anyone's permission to be happy. That June, I was promoted to head of engineering after leading a successful project that integrated AI into the regional banking system. I'll never forget the moment the CEO looked at me and said, "You're not just smart, you've done something our male engineers could learn from. Leading with clarity and confidence." My new salary put me in the top 1% of the industry, but that wasn't what made me proud. What mattered was that I no longer had to convince anyone I had value. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't send word to Carson. But of course, the news reached them. One Saturday, while Aiden and I were walking through the park, my phone lit up with an unknown number. I recognized it immediately. "Carson." I answered, not out of curiosity, but because I was ready for anything. "Sadie, it's me," his voice came through, trying to sound casual. "Heard you got a big promotion. Congrats." I stayed silent. He hesitated. "Actually, Mom said the roof needs repairs. Dad's been in the hospital. High blood pressure, you know how insurance is." I took a slow breath. "Carson, just say what you need." "Fine," he blurted. "I need to borrow a little. Not much, just about 80 grand. I'll pay it back slowly." I looked up at the pale gray sky, tree branches swaying in the early summer breeze. "No," I said firmly. "I'm not the family bank anymore. Sadie, come on. Don't be petty. I'm your brother. We're family." I let out a soft laugh. When I sat at the end of the table, ate leftovers, and slept on the couch, no one called me family. He stayed silent for a long moment. Then he hung up without another word. I blocked the number. And this time, there wasn't a single shard left in my chest. A few months later, Harper texted, "Your mom is telling everyone you won the lottery. Says there's no way you earned that money on your own." I replied, "Let them believe whatever makes their shame easier to swallow." That weekend, Aiden and I drove out to Cape Cod, rented a small cabin facing the ocean. At night, we baked pastries, listened to jazz, and talked about traveling to Kyoto next year. No duties, no obligations to prove my worth. Just me and the life I chose. I used to think peace was a gift someone else handed you, but it turns out it only arrives when you're brave enough to pull your hands away from what once made you bleed. And now, even without anyone calling me the daughter to be proud of, I feel whole. Because I've finally learned to call myself worthy. Sadie's story reminds us that sometimes family isn't where we grow. It's what we must leave to become who we're meant to be. Not everyone is lucky enough to be loved right from the start, but everyone has the right to rewrite their life. Recognition doesn't come from blood, it comes from the value, boundaries, and peace we build ourselves. What do you think of Sadie's choice? Would you be strong enough to walk away from something toxic like she did? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to follow the channel for more real-life, inspiring stories about family.